Alright, we want to construct a truth table for the given statement. And we're going to read this using the order of operations. We're going to start inside the parentheses, and this is going to be read as P or Q. This is a disjunction. And in the case of a disjunction, it's going to be true if P or Q are true. If both P and Q are false, then it'll be false, but we'll get to that in a moment. And then this is going to be read as and then this will be read as not P. Okay, so we're going to do the disjunction first inside the parentheses. We're also going to go ahead and fill in a column for not P, and then we're going to put those together. Now you'll notice that the columns are set up a little differently than how I read it. It first asks you to do not P, which is this column, then it asks you to do P or Q, which is this column, and then it asks you to put them together. Doesn't really matter how you set these up, but I tend to set them up a little differently when I start working through these things because I like to go in order of how the statement is written and how it's read. So you notice that I've rewritten the table, and it's going to more approximate how we're going to read this statement. So the first thing that we're going to do is we want to fill in this column right here, the P or Q. Remember, as I said, with a disjunction, this is going to be a true statement if either P or Q or both are true. So what does that mean? So that means P or Q or both are true. So we'll start out by looking at this, and we're going to say, okay, P is true, Q is true. That means P or Q, which is a disjunction, is true. Then we look at this line or row in the table. P is true, Q is false, which means that P or Q is true. P is false, Q is true, which means that P or Q is true. And then here we have both of them being false. That means that this statement is false. And now we've established the truth value for P or Q. The next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and look at not P. And basically that's going to be the negation of whatever P is. So in this case, P is true, so not P would be false. P is true here also, so not P would be false. Since P is false here, not P would be true. And since P is also false in this one, not P would be once again true. And now we're going to combine these two columns using the third column that we have established to find the truth value of P or Q and not P. Alright, so let's consider what this symbol means. This is a logical AND. Basically, in order for this to be a true statement, both statements have to be true. So, in this particular case, when I look at this one right here, P or Q is true, but not P is false. Therefore, P or Q and not P is also going to be false. This is a true statement for P or Q. This is a false statement for not P. This will also be a false statement. Now notice here that P or Q is true and not P is true also, so that will be a true statement since they're both true. And since this one contains a false statement of P or Q and this not P is true, this will be a false statement. And now we have our truth table. Now, as I said, it's set up differently than what is going to be in the problem that you're going to be solving. So make sure that you input the columns in the correct order. I'm going to start with this column right here, and this would be F, F, T, T. Then we'll go to, and let's put a number 1 there. Then we'll go to this. This is going to be the second column that I will input, which will be T, 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 and F. And then finally, the third column will be this one, and I will input that as F, F, T, and F. And so let me show you how that looks. We're going to put in F. We'll tab over to the next one. Now notice we're going to have to input it in columns in the problem. So this will be a T, and this will be an F. Hit tab again, and this will be F, T, F, and then T, 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 and then T, oops, F, F. And then we'll go ahead and double check, make sure that I've inputted everything correctly. And that looks correct, so then we'll hit check answer, and we're good.